Okay, well, it's 6:01, so Sally's here. Hello. I'm really glad you're here. I thought you would be big too. That was so sad. I've got nowhere to be.
Like, this is a night out. I get that.
How she feels when
Mission satisfied.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so it's 6:01. Nancy, you're doing minutes. Okay, great. So it's 6:01, so we'll call the meeting to order. And public comment, then we have a public comment not based on the agenda. Tours of the public. Technically, okay, good. And then anyone would add anything to the agenda? I did, Kristen, there was a something about water. And you said we should invite people to July. But that's not on the agenda and I totally forgot about it. Do you know what that
Water.
was?
It's not ringing a bell for me.
To me on the 12th of May. I remember that part.
Okay.
Because I thought it was today, because it was at the 5 versus the 6, and I was really confused as to how I just gotten this from you, but it was a month old.
Okay.
Green stormwater in Bristol.
Oh,
Edison County River Watch folks are wanting to know if we have interest in that. Do you want to add that to the agenda?
I will ask them if they want to be added to the agenda in July.
Okay, so we won't bother with adding that now.
Yeah, what they were interested in any stormwater projects in Bristol, and I sent them past meeting minutes from our Conservation Commission from a couple years ago when that was a topic. And there were some interested landowners, so I don't know if they followed up on that. I will follow up with them and understand if they want to come in July.
Okay, that sounds great. Just let me know and I'll stay on the agenda.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm not hearing anything new then immediately. Great, good. Okay, so we can review and approve the minutes of May 8th. So I'm gonna make a motion about that.
make a motion.
Great, a second? Great, it's seconded. So they want to, so all those in favor of passing the minutes? Okay, it'll pass. Everyone approved. That sounds great. So the minutes are approved. Thank you for that. Correspondence. Kristen, there are 2 letters to you in our mailbox that are to you. So you should get those.
I will, thank you.
I think they're River or something. And then that's all we have there. And then new business. You know what? I do want to add an organizational item. There will be HD. There will be membership. Ooh. That has to be added. Sorry to confuse anyone watching the meeting because I wanted to order there. Okay, it's great. Now we can do new business, Black Bears in Bristol. Okay, so Caitlin is joining us and want to talk to us about Black Bears. We thought we had a really, really tight timeline for our meeting today, but then there were some last minute shenanigans and now we have a pretty empty agenda. So, because I tabled a bunch of stuff that now we probably should have talked about because of shenanigans. So that means you have as long as you want to talk about this pretty much. So I expect you for half an hour. If we go a little long, we're not going to cut you off. I don't know what you want to talk about, but
Okay.
we're more open than I thought we were originally. So
Well, that
whatever you'd like to talk about is wonderful.
wonderful. Well, thank you. Well, I haven't had dinner yet, so I probably won't go. Yeah. Well, I'm Caitlin Cusack. I live on Lower Notch here in Bristol. I'm a forester, another relevant hat. But I also just went through a training called the Bear Ambassador Training. And so I just wanted to talk to you all about this training, share that I'm a resource for the community, and it's really to figure out how we can minimize human black bear conflicts. So I was noticing that last year, we had a ton of front porch postings about black bears and getting into trash, being seen a lot in the village and whatnot. Even out on Lower Notch, we had some trash containers knocked over. And so in order to address this, last 2 years, Vermont Fish and Wildlife has been partnering with Vermont Coverts. So I don't know if folks are familiar with Vermont Coverts. Yeah, it's a nonprofit. It's called Woodlands for Wildlife, but they train train landowners and then other community members to be like a peer-to-peer network and support for each other and how to promote better wildlife habitat on private lands. And so they, because of all these kind of, and Bristol's not the only town, as you could imagine, that's seeing a lot more human black bear conflicts. And so they decided to start this program, provide training. So I just finished it in April. And it's to have people in these communities to be able to be a resource and share information with the community about black bears. I learned a fun fact, and that many fun facts, but one that was just wowed me is black bears have 7 times the sense of smell as bloodhounds do. And so they also have impeccable memories. And so when they find a food source, when they find trash, when they find a feeder, they can smell it from miles away and they can remember where it is and they will come back and visit it. And so, they haven't, Fish and Wildlife was saying they haven't had too many situations where they've had to put down a bear, but it does happen. And that's because things escalate. If you don't deal with sort of the attractants, and the bear realizes, oh, I got a free meal. I mean, this bear could forage all day for beech nuts in the fall, or it could go visit this trash can and have a meal like right there. So a lot of this is just community education, like advocacy. And so I wanted one to just share that there is this program and see if, you've heard in the community or know of kind of black bear conflicts or maybe areas where just some more information would be helpful. And then I'm starting to think about like how to just spread information to the community about how to reduce conflicts between us and bears so that the Fish and Wildlife calls it Living with Bears program. And a lot of it, there's some great resources. There's our game wardens. There's a federal employee that when you submit a report online, they will come and basically evaluate your homestead. And in fact, while I was going through the training, we had our compost. It was not, I realized by going through the training, was not bear proof and didn't a bear visit it this spring. To like tore it open. Matt thought he had created Fort Knox. That's my husband. But in one couple swipes, it had just opened it up, right? And then so I thought, oh gosh, okay. So then I was, kind of thinking, okay, where else would they be interested? And so we made sure that there wasn't any trash outside. We store our trash inside, but we Airbnb our yurt. And unbeknownst to us, before we left on vacation, some yurt guests left a bag of trash in the trash can. And when we got home from vacation, we found the trash can had been knocked over and the bag was in the woods. Well, we were a week after that, so kind of cleaned that up, got that all kind of put away. My husband's a sugar maker, and he had been doing kind of the last cleanup. And so, I mean, maple was wafting from the sugar house. Well, it was like 7 at night, and we saw the culprit. We finally saw it, like walked right up our driveway, no fear, like just walking around. So my daughter, who's 6, thought it was hilarious because I immediately grabbed pots and pans and went flying outside to scare it away. And she like got involved, and it did run away. So luckily it hadn't gotten so accustomed to being around us. So I learned from personal experience how these things can escalate, right? Like a bear can easily get very comfortable. And so I did my report online, and lo and behold, I get a call from one of the trainers of the Bear Ambassador program. He didn't realize I had just gone through the program and just met him, but he said, hey, I'm going to be in Middlebury. I'll come down. I'm happy to look at your property, assess the attractants, figure out a way to kind of minimize. And so I guess just kind of sharing that story and just that there are resources there to help homeowners to limit these sort of conflicts. That's kind of what I'm here for. And I'm curious, like with your experience in the community, what might be some opportunities you think for kind of sharing this information?
Yeah, the library is one.
Library, yep, that's great.
They have regular talks for people in the community, presentations, and they could probably help with distributing like printed material or
Printing
something like
material,
that.
okay, so yeah, doing a talk with the library, yeah, that's
I mean,
great.
we could host a talk.
Yep.
I tabled the education piece, but.
I mean, it's something to say about But yeah, if it's something that maybe we should like ask around, see if this is something that like people would want, like have a bunch of interest in, because it's true that like the last couple of years on Front Porch Forum, There's been a lot of talk about bears. It might be something that a lot of people in the community would be interested in coming and hearing you discuss what to do and ask their questions, if
Yeah.
that's something they're interested in.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you be interested in helping, like running like a 40-minute or 30-minute talk with a Q&A, or would you know someone that would want to run something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point I could probably do the 30-minute
Okay.
in Q&A. And there's another woman up in, Tina Scharf also went through the training. She's up in Lincoln, so I could
Mhm.
even invite her to
Oh,
come
and
down
then
and
we could
join
get
me.
the Lincoln
in that-
community involved.
Yeah, Lincoln
Yeah,
Community,
like
and then
that.
between the two of us, we could tag team,
Mhm.
any questions or answers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In many ways, we don't really have to reinvent the wheel because Caitlin, about a month ago, you might have seen it on Front Porch Forum. Don and Cheryl Mitchell did a presentation with the New Haven Conservation Commission,
Oh,
and
okay.
and it was fabulous. They had basically had a slideshow. It probably went 40 some odd minutes with time for questions, so it lasted maybe an hour. That's typical. Very comprehensive. It was well attended based on their office space. Probably about, I don't know, 25 people or so. So I think they would be a great resource if they didn't want to even offer that they could do the presentation again. But that slideshow, I think, came from the program that you described.
Yes, yep. Yeah, that's great, John. That's neat. They were actually in the same training that I was in this year. So that's cool to hear that they've done a program. Yeah, that's great. And I could ask them, I'm pretty sure I have the slideshow, but I could ask them if which slideshow they used or if they had any slides. That's a great suggestion. Thanks.
Is there a time of year that you would prefer? Like, do you want to do it like soon to kind of like get it out before summer? Do you want to wait until fall,
Yeah.
winter and be thinking about educating people for next summer? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think any time of year, is fine. I know summer
Mhm.
can be so busy, like, right,
Yeah,
we're almost so
it's true.
busy, so finding folks to attend would be one
Yeah.
thing. I think spring can be really great as
Mhm.
people are around the time of bird feeders need to be brought in, bears are coming out of hibernation, that can be a good time, but
Yeah.
also the fall, because bears are trying to, stock up on food. And so that can be a time when they are also, a little more present. The summer tends to be, they've got plenty to choose from, but
Mhm.
sometimes the fall is they're
If
getting
you
ready.
tell us your favorite
Yeah.
month,
Yeah.
September
Make it
through
happen.
Okay.
May, we
Yeah.
could help get
Yeah.
Holly Hall and do a thing if you wanted.
Yeah, that's great.
Would you
Yeah.
want to do something in Holly Hall with like rows of chairs set up and a projector, or would you want to do something just in this room? Like what would your vision be for that?
Yeah, I mean, I
For
guess
the interest?
probably, I mean, I mean, it sounds like Cheryl and Dawn had what, 25, Jono?
I think
Yeah.
I'd say that was about right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that could work, I'm sure, pretty well in here, unless
I
we
think if it
thought.
was if it was if
From
it was
Lincoln, could advertise stuff there too.
if
Yeah.
it was promoted well,
Yeah.
imagine that the whole 5-town part of communication could really double that size easily, and therefore it'd probably be better at Holly Hall. But I think maybe a survey, those that are interested, you have questions, something to that effect. I mean, that's a little extra work, but that would give a feeler for how many people would want to attend.
Well, I mean, we are the town, so we can use the upstairs for free, right? So like we can just go ahead and do that. We can all just help set up chairs and stuff,
Yeah,
right?
you just need to coordinate with us so we
Right.
can schedule booking and figure out what your needs are for it and we'll move from there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, maybe
Yeah.
like when bears are waking up, if that's when everyone starts to think about bears, right? Would
Yeah,
that be
yeah.
about the timeline, or do you think
Yeah.
fall's better?
I mean, maybe we could maybe try it in the fall.
Okay.
How's that? And see if there's interest, and then if there's interest, we could maybe run it again in collaboration with some of the other towns in the spring as like a refresher, like reminder, like, at that point
Yeah.
too, bears are coming out of hibernation and yeah.
That sounds great. So is that like,
Yeah.
would that be, I don't know the bear life cycle that well, September, October?
Yeah, I think September, October, that'd be good for the fall. And then probably the spring would be probably more like April. It all
Yeah.
depends on the weather, but yeah.
Okay,
If we were to directly invite certain groups like Boy Scouts, advertise it in the library newsletter, if we really did a good job of blanketing the promotion of it, I feel like we could get a good turnout.
yeah.
That's great. And John, the Boy Scouts and even the Girl Scouts, that's a great suggestion too. I know, I'm sure they all have some sort of badge related to wildlife and maybe could even
Hmm.
help them get their badge. And then they're great ambassadors, when they learn new stuff, they can help spread the word too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and one of the, I get, there's several different questions I get. It's like, oh, I'm on the Conservation Commission, and someone asks like, oh, what about this? I feel like bears and compost comes up a lot.
Uh-huh.
Right, so like, is
Yeah.
compost really a thing? Do I have to do it? And if so, how do I do it with a bear? And then now what? And then
Yeah.
there's just sort of stuck.
Yes,
It's an attractant and it's always
Yes.
there. It can't leave.
right, right.
And I'm always like,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that would be really helpful. And there
Oh
is
my
like,
gosh.
people do want to know what to do with that, I think. you
Yep.
know.
Yeah,
Since
that's
we're
great.
supposed to be composting by law,
Yep,
but then we also are supposed to put things out that are attracting bears. So
right.
there's an inherent conflict there.
Totally, and that's what we ran into, and it was either we build a high voltage electric fence around our compost. And when I brought that up to my husband, he's like, so what's plan B? So, now we keep the compost in the basement. I just take it to the up to the transfer, not the
Right.
transfer station, but here in Bristol, they
Right,
collect compost and we just do it that way for now, because we haven't quite figured out a way to keep it secure enough.
right.
Yeah,
I've seen
so,
even have people have
yeah.
a refrigerator, they're keeping their compost in, so it doesn't smell and then throw it out.
Yes.
But now you're using your refrigerator, right? It's like Jalen's paradox of like,
Mm.
the more we can use electricity, the more we use it for nonsense, and we can never be free of the hedonistic treadmill and all. So like now we're using electricity to cool our compost. And that's bad for the environment too, in different ways, right?
I've
So-
noticed that more and more people in the village are having the horses pick up their compost, which I bet is helping
Okay.
bears not come into,
Mm.
Yeah.
especially like the like 6 neighbors around me, we all got rats at one point.
Oh, man.
And
Yeah.
so all of us started having our compost go offsite.
Yep.
And so I bet that helps with a lot of different critters.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's
know we all
great.
had raccoons too.
God.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we have raccoons.
Yeah.
We have very healthy raccoons. Yeah, yeah. And that's a great idea. I could even compose a post now for Front Porch Forum that just talks about how to
Mhm.
secure compost
Mhm.
from bears and, kind of what are the
Or what
options?
to
What
do
are
with
people,
it.
what are people
Because,
doing?
yeah,
Right,
how do you
who
keep
can
it,
take
how do you keep it safe on site, or like, who will take it?
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
that changes over time. I know they rolled out the law a few years ago now. We
yeah,
there hasn't been much information.
yeah.
Like, kind of think Casellas doesn't do it,
No,
Uh-huh,
right?
uh-huh.
And that's one of the major ones. I don't know
Yeah.
about,
I don't-
R&L
I don't-
does, but
Does
they don't
R&L
pick
do
up,
it?
they just do it.
they just do it here.
They just do it here. They don't pick it up
Mhm.
on curbside, but then the transfer station in Middlebury also takes
Yeah.
compost, but
Yeah.
Yeah, and the horses do,
Yeah.
which is great.
that is great. Yeah,
I feel like
Yeah.
that's been huge in the village.
yeah,
How do
yeah.
they charge for that?
Nothing.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
you pay
wow.
for trash and recycling and compost is free.
And that comes with it. Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
I wish they came down.
Right,
more
because when they
much.
rolled out recycling, my
Maybe that's
understanding
it.
was that it was
Yeah.
free, right? But then compost, they rolled it out as a law, but didn't say that it wasn't free though, right? There's like a piece of that law that's missing, it feels like.
Hmm.
So it's like, well, how do we help people be compliant?
You can bring it to the transfer station for free. Can
In
you bring
Middlebury?
it, you can bring it to.
They
you
do
bring it
charge
over
in
there
Middlebury. They do charge at the transfer station.
for compost?
Mhm.
Really?
It's like $1 or $2 a 5
Oh,
gallon
yeah,
bucket.
no, you're right,
Yeah,
yeah, cause
but-
when you bring
Minimum.
like lawn scraps and stuff, they charge you
Yeah,
like $3 for a whole trailer.
for a whole trailer, yeah. So
Yeah.
the 5 gallon bucket's like $1 or $2, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Do they
Yeah.
charge you, can you bring it, do they charge you when you bring it over?
They
to-
do, but again, it was like,
Okay.
the 5 gallon bucket last time was like $3. So, yeah. It's not a lot, but yeah, there's a cost to it for sure. Yep, yeah. Well, that's great.
And
Yeah.
then
I
you
can
have
definitely
those
do that
handouts,
soon.
you had those, the grid update table.
Yeah, thank you.
right?
Yeah, and then it started raining. I realized that was like the timing was
Yeah,
not great there.
you have them.
Yeah.
Now, the population,
I took one
like
of
in
each.
general in Vermont has.
Who was-
gone up,
yeah.
right? Has it
We've
gone
been
up?
out there.
Do you have
Bears.
any idea about our specific
Yeah.
area or not really?
They don't, Fish and Wildlife doesn't have a good way to actually do census of
Yeah.
bears. It's like a pretty big estimate with like
Yeah.
big, like standard deviation bars,
Yeah.
but they have seen increasing population through,
Yeah.
throughout the state. They haven't, I don't think they've been able to kind of pinpoint it to particular areas.
Yeah.
They do know, they are able to track where they're seeing more conflicts, what towns and whatnot, but
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. And we see like depending on like beach mast years, we see kind of fluctuations like that in the population.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause I gotta imagine that that's gonna lead to more conflict.
yeah.
The population rises,
Yeah.
if it continues to rise.
If it continues to, if it continues to be healthy, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Also not in town. Yeah, there's a bear season.
Yeah.
But if they eat garbage, they taste like garbage, right? So you have to be
I've heard that's true, that's true.
careful from a source.
Yeah, I've heard that what they're eating matters a lot. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like out in LA, there's like a whole new, what they're finding, subspecies of bears that just survive on trash. And they're
Wow.
urban bears.
Wow.
And they have much shorter lifespans than
Trash
wild bears, craft bears. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have handouts.
I do have
think we put a
handouts,
stack of
yeah.
them out front already.
Okay.
We don't know what the status of those handouts are.
I can look on
We
the
sort of
way.
threw 'em
I
there.
can look on the way out. I brought some extras of
Yeah,
things.
set on that counter.
Okay,
Okay, great.
and then
Yeah.
Zaylee, you're gonna be in touch with her
I'll be in touch.
in fall.
Great.
I will be.
Thanks. Yeah, that sounds great.
How
Yeah.
early did I need to pick a date for Holly Hall to get that on?
So,
the
I mean, so prudent, sooner the better, like if you lock something, if at all, if the metrics. For crowdsourcing interest. Comes to fruition.
Mm.
Bring that to the attention of us and we can come up with a date and. We'll look at our schedule, cause there's always stuff coming in all the time. So. Sooner the better.
Okay. Yeah, I think we just do it upstairs on some night when it's available.
Yeah.
Right, we can just help set up chairs and just do a screen, right?
Yeah, I can do it all for you.
Okay.
What service?
Okay, cool.
Right.
So yeah, so let's just, if you maybe just could go and do an email thread and just find a date or a couple dates and loop in the rec department and make sure that's available.
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds good.
Yeah.
John, I'll check in with Cheryl and Dawn about their presentation.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, great.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks,
I know you
everyone.
wanna come
Yeah,
out to good dinner.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for being our Conservation Commission. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
always have a spot. You know, a lot of us have little kids now. That's no longer an excuse. Wow.
You tell me it's a night out.
Just a night out, yeah.
It's my only night out.
This is BS night out. you know,
Totally.
so.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good to see you. We'll be in touch. Okay.
Bye.
All right, so our next thing then is the Bristol Pond Dam. Now, we had talked about having a really big conversation about this. And having homework and bring in folks from Lewis Creek Association and doing a whole bunch of stuff. But then we also that email that Alex is not gonna be able to be part of the commission anymore because of this issue partially. Because he's really busy doing that work, which is good and great, but we're gonna miss him a lot. So I don't actually know where that leaves us for this conversation. I don't have anything to say about this really. I don't know if anyone does. I know Kristen tried to invite the Lewis Creek Association, but their meeting is this Thursday, so they could come. And I don't know, Alex also told me he was gonna email me a bunch of documents, which I didn't get. So, I don't have much to say about this, and if anyone does, that'd be great, but unfortunately, I don't know where we go from here at the moment. Anyway.
Did they decide what to do with the beavers?
No, so the last I knew of it, Alex got in touch with the state to try to get a ballpark figure of how much something would cost, or how much they would like, how much a new dam would cost, so that he could get an idea, so that he could talk to people about fundraising. And the state said that they were too disorganized to even get him a potential, even a ballpark figure. That they were like, it was all chaotic and Bristol Pond was too low on the list. So it's, he has no idea how much to discuss with people about fundraising. So doesn't really have a good sense of what the next step forward is. That is the last I heard. Then when he came back from a 5-hour meeting in Montpelier today, he said, I think that the whole state should just be developed to save me the trouble. And I think he was a little shell shocked in Montpelier today. So I will discuss this with him on a different day and see if he has anything else going on. And if he likes conservation again.
I told her he should run for office, that he could be like making the laws. He said he didn't have nice enough shoes.
It's true, I saw the outfit, he went to Montpelier today. He looked like a hillbilly politician, that's for sure.
So yeah, so it sounds like a big mess.
Yeah.
There's 200 of these dams that need to get taken care of. They've been sort of, it sounds like they've been kind of kicking the can on this issue for years. Now it's time they have to move on it, and now there's too much work to do all at once, and no one knows what to do.
And
Or
not
they
enough time
plan
to get good for.
do a good job.
Community, well,
Yeah.
not enough time for communities to come up with their own solution.
Mhm.
Which is where we're. The position we're in, we're like, we could do something. I bet we would get a lot of community support in trying to save the structure of Bristol Pond as it is, but,
Right.
but how much money do you get? Who do you talk to when you don't have a ballpark figure of how much money you get? So I don't know if there's gonna be a time where they can give an estimate,
Will just
Or
be a day where they
it's gonna
just
be like-
drive up and start pulling things
or
out.
if they're just gonna come bomb the dam. And.
Did I read in
Yeah.
Alex's email that they're gonna do that this summer, one way or the other?
Yeah.
That's definitely right.
And so the idea was like, could we community fundraise to replace the dam?
Mm.
Instead of just getting rid of the dam? Or even just let the beavers build it back up themselves, which they
Right.
would probably do, but
Right.
part of this situation is that they
There's
have
over
to
30
keep the
adult
beavers out
beavers,
of
yeah.
there. So they're just gonna like continue to
Right.
somehow.
Yeah, it makes no sense to
The
take away the
beavers.
beaver dam unless you've got phase 2 ready to go, right?
Right.
Well, unless you can mitigate it, and if you don't have a plan to mitigate it, the beaver's gonna be beavering.
Exactly.
Right,
Right.
so, well, yeah, so there seem to be some unclear parts of this.
Hmm.
Where, where I don't know who is also in charge of continuing to come and get rid of the beavers. Because so basically, there is currently a beaver dam. What was not known by most people in the community is that there is actually a man-made dam under that. And they, of course, that's not in compliance because it's 1 billion years old, and so they have to come blow up that dam per this law. And keep, for some reason, part of the law is to keep beavers from building up the dam again, which doesn't make a ton of sense.
Right.
It would, but this would drastically change the structure of Bristol Pond,
The whole
Well,
thing, none of
yeah,
this
if
is
you're
gonna
blowing
be-
up-
because you're gonna lower the water.
Right.
limit by
Exactly.
really
What's
significantly.
do they consider where the water's gonna go?
Like, is it like, well, so long people that live
Is the
there,
water just
like,
gonna go
Right.
straight down? Like, what about that?
I have no
Where-
answers.
where's the land?
You're gonna flood out Farmer John's.
Yeah,
field
like,
down
and
the
be
road.
like, well,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, so
Farmer,
this is
yeah.
all in the name of flood mitigation.
Or flooding.
Basically, so that,
Right.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
Gotta start the flood so you can
grossly
mitigate it.
commentating and speculating about this.
Yes.
Well, I think that's all we can all do.
Right.
There's no, especially because like there's no answers for Bristol Pond right now, and it might be that there are no answers until they show up
Right.
and blow up the dam.
But no one knows when.
And no one knows
they'll
when,
just show
and we
up.
have not been able to fundraise to replace the dam or figure out a solution of our own.
Is there a way, wait, let's say they blow up the dam and there's just a hole and there's beaver sticks and what would it cost from that to create a compliant dam? Could we fundraise based on that?
I don't-
Right?
Well,
Like,
yeah.
if they're gonna do that and that's the hole that's left, our town should be allowed to come back and do something with that gaping hole, right? So what would it, could we fundraise based on not like taking it out
I mean,
safely, taking it in, but like.
if we could just let the beavers be there,
See, that's
they would
the-
Yeah.
dam it up again.
Amen. I think the Beavers are doing a
I mean,
fantastic
not
job.
there's any point in
But-
fencing
Why
too,
would
but-
we want to mess with
Again,
nature?
beaver's
But
gonna
I
be
am not
beavers,
the fish
you
and
know,
wildlife. I
they're
mean,
gonna
it
come
seems
back.
preposterous
It's
that,
a water source, beavers from near and far will come back. They'll
Right.
be like,
Yeah.
oh, they blew up the dam, and they'll all tell each other, and then
Yeah.
they'll come back and they'll be like,
Mhm.
now we have pieces of concrete we can move.
I would really love to know that maybe we could be a pilot program for this. I know they've dealt with beavers up in Lincoln. They've dealt with beavers in culverts and other places. There's a guy that's well known for how you kind of coexist with beavers and beaver
Oh, the
dams.
beaver deceiver guy, Alex has talked to him already, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, like, so this is a little different, because
The
this
beaver
isn't, this is a
deceiver.
conflict with beaver.
Mhm.
This is,
You said
this is
flood.
more, because we're not like having, it's not like we have too many beavers and we have like a problem with beavers.
Hello, for the Conservation Commission meeting?
Yeah, no, I'm the zoning administrator, I was just.
Yeah.
That's a Z, that was close, one letter off, you know?
But
I
yeah.
get it.
so
It's about flood. It's about flood mitigation, but at the same time, I don't know how many studies there are, but it seems like we've been experiencing serious floods, and I don't know what the track record is of this beaver dam and how effective it's been. I mean, you had plenty of testing right there.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, a dam could be put in that is in compliance. It would just cost money.
I know.
We
I
don't
guess
know how much money.
well, I don't know. It's just.
But you
it's
have to have
really
an compliant dam that then use beaver deceivers to keep beavers off the dam to do work that could be done by the beavers.
Beavers, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's just ass backwards. Sorry for the language, but it's
Yes.
just the Beavers are
Yeah.
doing a great job. I think, you know, I know that Fish and Wildlife has to, you know, to be compliant, but somebody's got to be able to look at this.
Well, I
better.
know, yeah. I think the problem was that it was a very broad law that was passed. Very broad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dams that were not really known even to homeowners who had them on their property as dams that are within this law. And then Fish and Wildlife wasn't sure what to do with it, so they didn't do anything about it until now. There's a pretty mad scramble. So I'll ask Alex for an update before the next meeting, I guess, and see what he's discussing with them and. Cause I know he's done a decent amount of outreach, trying to figure out if there is a way to start trying to do community. Networking and.
Is there the possibility to lobby and to get, if there's enough people that are upset with us across the state, to get this repealed or to get a longer?
It's too late because the
longer
legislation
time?
is no longer in session.
Oh, I see.
If all of this had been brought to the attention of people in situations like ours earlier, maybe.
Hmm.
I
But
disagree with
because
that.
this was put off until, I mean, this was passed in like, I think it was 2018 or something.
Okay.
So it's been a long time, and now it's suddenly they need to move and like do it all in a hurry to get it done by the date that they were supposed to get it done by, and the legislation won't be in session. So
If we are really low down on the list, and we're talking about 200 dams, the legislature will be back in session, I want to say September.
I believe that to be in the framework of the law, I believe it's something like July.
Well,
But
I
that's
just feel
supposed
like
to do all
I think time is on our side from what I can gather based on how slow they're moving. They don't have their
Yeah.
acts together.
You got 81 days between now and September 1st. That's more than a dam a day. Can
It's not gonna
can the
happen.
Vermont government do that quickly?
No.
Do you have the people for that? Like, no way, right?
I have no idea, and Alex has tried to get answers on that.
I just don't.
There are no
think we have,
answers
like,
either.
Enough bombs and permits and people. Like, my dentist doesn't have a hygienist right now. Like, I just don't think we're gonna find people to blow up a dam, right?
Right.
It's 81 days. I just think they're gonna blow up 200 dams in 81 days.
I have no idea.
Optimistically, I think we're not organized
I
enough to do
will,
that.
I will keep
We're
this.
gonna have to, reevaluate and be like, whoops.
Mhm.
It might be worth getting the word out that we would like to do a community fundraiser at some point in the hopes of being able to replace the dam or fix the dam or whatever it is that needs to be done to keep it so that Bristol Pond doesn't sort of disappear as a recreational area. I don't know if it would be helpful to get that out before, like, just so people have it on their radar. That like there is something that potentially we could all do.
I was talking to people at Pickup today about this, and they had no idea there was a dam, and they had no idea there was a problem, and hadn't heard anything about it. And we're like, what? They're gonna do what now? Like, and they were all,
Right.
I was like, yeah, this is happening.
I mean,
Oh,
I
I've heard
think,
about it.
I think it would be worth, there were a couple things on Front Porch Forum about it very briefly, but it was more about the killing of the beavers. And
Yeah.
less about the fact that Bristol Pond is a recreational area and as a habitat will be really damaged. So I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
Has anyone, meeting Alex, probably not, like, talked about, cause the dam is in Moncton, correct? Is that what?
It's on the Bristol Moncton line. It might.
Right.
Line, it might.
It's in Moncton.
Oh, Crystal's.
Is it Moncton? Okay.
So do they have a conservation commission in Moncton?
Yes.
Yes.
If
We
they
could
have
discuss this with
any
them.
input, thoughts?
I think
From the
last I heard
beach.
they're deferring to us.
Well, it'd be worth
We'll
reaching
defer
out.
back to them,
Yeah.
collaborate with them.
Yeah,
Cause they could reach more people on that side and.
that's probably true. Okay, I will do more work on this and learn more since my husband has abandoned ship. Oh, the Bristol Pond Dam.
Yeah,
Yeah. Do you have new information on this?
not really, I know the state wants to blow up beaver dams, which I think
Yes.
is so funny because I'm pretty sure it was an Eastern European country. I wanna say Ukraine, but I'm not 100% sure, maybe like Belarus. But they literally, they have like brought back the beavers because they are excellent flood control
Right.
and preventative.
Right.
For that, so I think it's very. Funny and interesting that Vermont, which praises itself on being such a very environmentally forward state. Is quite literally blowing up. Very beneficial ecological creatures that are.
Could we enter your name into the record? Because I think that's valuable information.
Give me 2 seconds, let me like stop officially working and then yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Weird that I have no idea, but
yeah.
Very interesting. Don't have any information on the Bristol beaver dam now. I do believe it's in Moncton,
Yeah.
it's just over the border.
Yeah, so basically there's like a beaver dam, which everyone has just assumed was a beaver dam. And it is.
Yeah.
But it's over a really old man-made dam that's no longer in compliance.
Eminent domain, the beavers cannot.
I mean, no one would even know that dam's there. You can't see
Yeah.
it under the beaver dam.
Yeah,
But now that because it's not in compliance, it has to be blown up and they have to keep the beavers off of it. for some reason from now on. That part.
I guess the
clear
big part that I'd wanna know is
Yeah.
what is the specifications of the compliance? Like,
I don't-
what is that? Like,
Mhm.
what does that mean?
I don't, yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be concrete anymore, or structurally sound, or it's gonna create like hazardous material. Yeah, we'll take care of it. That's the critical information.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Be like, what does compliance mean? Like, what about it structurally? Or is it just old? So it's out of compliance?
Right.
yeah,
Like,
I don't know. what component.
it could, you know, like it can be the broad stroking thing, like you said, so it'd be nice to like get a definitive thing, cause if they really don't know, then you can check them on that and be like, yo, if you really don't know what you're saying here, then why are we even trying to fix a problem we don't have?
My understanding is that, yeah, is that they have a long list of ones that they have deemed are out of compliance.
Find that guy. He's
Okay.
there, I mean.
I've learned
Just,
about this.
Okay.
just climb the ladder.
And-
Sounds good, okay.
Bureaucratic ladder.
And I can.
If you could
yeah.
learn more about this, that'd be lovely. Also, as things are emerging, if they're really trying to do this by July, we should be knowing things by our next meeting, which would be a Zoom meeting in
Yeah.
July, right?
Mhm.
And then in that time, Kristen, would it be possible, could you invite New Haven? No, Moncton, what town was it? Moncton, sorry. Do you know who's on Moncton?
Yeah, I can reach out to them to understand if this topic is even on their radar.
Yeah,
Okay.
Cool.
not every commission has an Alex, so neither do we.
Well, maybe I can get just public citizen Alex Smith to come in. Discuss this, just for that portion, and then
Make
we can
him
leave
sit
and
back
take care of
there.
the children again.
Okay, cool.
Mr. Alex goes to Montpelier.
Right.
Oh my God, yeah. That's why I said Mr. Alex. Just switch it off.
Hopefully we won't go to one of those meetings on this day next month. I have no idea if they're like.
Well, if he's by then, he could have chained himself to it. We may be bringing him sandwiches.
He might be starting a company for development by that point, I'm not sure.
Burn it all down.
We could community fund so he has fresh shoes.
That's right.
Next I shoot.
Okay, cool. Well, okay, that is bleak, but thank you all for bringing this to our attention and trying our best with it. 6:43. So is everyone good on that? Kristen, you sent that one email. You're gonna learn more and do stuff. Anyone else chaining themselves, buying Alex shoes, what have you? Okay, good. Okay. Great. So then our next thing is gonna be old business, will be parks update, and there's a whole bunch of things we can talk about for parks. That Timberlands multi-trail partnership, Roger is not here, he doesn't have information to enter into that. So that will probably be fairly tabled, so again, don't worry about the timeline that I wrote on there, because we don't have to worry about that because of shenanigans. So that means we're at parks updates, and we can take as long as we need.
Okay. Where do you want to start?
I started it officially on the list with Sycamore Park Trails, but we can really talk about whatever.
Sure. Let's start there. So, to inform you all, I have been surveying and stewarding the park, Sycamore Park, and
Should I be showing photos?
if you want. The river access trail that's posted at the lower access does not reflect where you exit that trail to the shoreline. The shoreline has changed so dramatically over the last few years that it literally dumps you out to the river edge. So it's also serpentines and switchbacks because it's all footpath because of all the overgrowth. That creates a problem for emergency access. Something we need to steward and be safe about. So I made a proposal about the two paths. So we have one that's an implied footpath on the upper shore in this diagram. And then the posted one is below. So
Sorry, it's really touchy.
um
Sorry.
you're doing great. I made a little index there saying the key so you can figure out what's going on. So both of those paths are very switchbacky and zigzag, and so. Presenting this to the select board, we explained to them how important it is to have emergency access, and it needs to be utility with. So what I presented to them was me and John Swepson, the tree warden, are gonna be doing some opening of that trail into a uh, utility with.
Are you
Size
speaking of
trail.
an ATV type of width? Is that what-
It'll be big enough to be able to bring the town tractor through it, so it'll be like 18 to 20 feet wide.
Jeez.
really?
This isn't going to disrupt old growth trees. We're only gonna take out like ratty old
Ready
trees.
new.
Ratty trees that have like from the flooding of 98 and all the floodplains that have like leaned into the ground, actually growing back down into the ground, growing back up. And around the thickets of Japanese knotweed. So the plan is, in the work scope, is to meander around any old growth trees. But to keep the path what it needs to be accessible for as a utility path and river access for folks. So that it's clear line of sight for safety and accessibility. So that means cutting back those trees, bushwhacking through all the bramble and bushes and all that stuff, and then having it be able to cut it all back, chip piles, and then make a chipped substrate for people to walk through. And you see in the diagram, the upper trail kind of has a bend to it. Part of that bend is because there's a lot of old growth trees in there, and we're kind of following the natural contour of the footpath. But at the same time, we'll just kind of pick the trees that need to go to help improve the canopy and kind of keep a natural path, but still a sort of straight path. The actual posted path just literally needs to be shifted from where it was before about 40 feet the other direction, and I bushwhacked through that myself. And it's mostly just knotweed and just a few sycamores and some other trees that are just that are just kind of like in the access that are leaning in, so they'll just be cut. They're no bigger than, I'd say at most maybe 10 inches, maybe. But I didn't really see a bunch of trees that would be in the way, so there's not gonna be like large felling of trees, there will be logging actions. It's pretty straightforward. With that said, John always has chips, so I'm gonna give him access with his truck to be able to dump chips and just have a constant supply of chips to be able to use to help mitigate the knotweed in egresses to certain green spaces as a protocol moving forward of maintenance. So we'll be at the first trail, the posted trail, for about a day and a half. And then I will meet up with Eric Coda and we will kind of size up and walk what we've cut and cleared. And then he'll finish it off with the mower deck to clean it up, and then we'll spread some chips. And it'll be accessible. And we want to get it done before the new fiscal year.
Wow.
So
A lot of work.
next week.
Wow. Have you guys started or no?
We're gonna start on Monday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
That's impressive. And if it was as wide as 18 to 20 feet, when you end up having that knotweed grow in as a canopy, it probably sort of makes it feel like a tunnel of 16 or 15 feet. But nonetheless,
I mean, right now the path is 3 feet wide. It's like
Yeah, that-
walking through
yeah.
a labyrinth. And then
Yeah.
if you're not familiar with the footpath, you can go down any series of footpaths that switch
Sure.
back onto the main footpath. And then you just end up back where you started.
Right.
And so unless you're familiar enough to know these old footpaths, you're just gonna be going around in a circle for a bit till you realize,
Right.
oh, there's this axis that sweeps across. So if you zoom in, let's zoom into the first posted trail and you'll see little dashes. And those dashes reflect the old footpaths and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's not accessible. And there's no way you could, other than looking, be able to help anybody in an emergency.
Mhm.
You'd literally be like diving through, or you know,
Never thought about the emergency access part of it.
yeah, I mean, if something happens.
Yeah. Which
You're,
is not a crazy
or a kid
idea.
gets, a kid wanders,
Mhm.
like they're just gonna wander in the brush. I mean, it's not that much brush between the green space and there. So overall, like, I feel like the work scope will be pretty quick. Like,
Mhm.
it's a lot of knotweed. It's just tons of knotweed and just tons of just scraggly stuff and then there's a lot of sandbar in there. Especially that first like quarter of that trail is all sandbar.
Mhm.
And then you eventually just dump out. And there's a bunch of trees that snapped and fell in to the path, so people have been walking around that, so just this like
Yeah.
back and forth all the way up, so.
I think too, like, there's people like to do this, they come across the apple trees down through that field and they scoot down here and there's a
Yep.
really steep bank and that's
Right.
it's more direct than
Right,
zigzagging.
so if you
But
look,
then you have people, it really is eroded, people are starting to
Right,
break their ankle and
exactly.
trying to run down there.
so, and this part here just drops off.
He's just pointing right here.
This little water way.
Hmm.
Dries up and then it just becomes this mucky stagnant water pond. So this is where the post, the wayfinding sign is, so you go down like this and you literally cut across. Cause there's a fallen tree in here and then this is the way it wants you to go. And it just dumps you out into the river. And this, you actually have to go around and then this way. And that's
This
where-
image was this something that Ian just did with you?
Yeah, we did it with drones.
So this is just a couple days ago.
So.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It says.
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal. You are a godsend to that Sycamore Park master plan for these river accesses. I mean, short of a boardwalk, that's about as good as you can get, I think.
Yeah, and I think it'll help with the chipping and then having a constant material resource revenue, excuse me, stream for chips. We'll be able to just keep dumping them and hopefully create a nice thick substrate that'll keep the knotweed down.
Yeah.
And then I reached out to Eric and I'm like, he's like, I can't really donate a ton of time every month or two to keep that trail
Mhm.
as tidy as possible. And I'm like, I don't think we need to do that. I think really what we need to do is just pile on the chips and it'll just be this nice wide path that's just full of chips. And then over time, it'll compost and break down. And John will always have fresh chips. So it's not like we're gonna make this attempt, put these chips in and then like they're gonna compost and then all of a sudden the knotweed's gonna come back up and that trail's gonna slowly like.
Isn't there, okay, so if we can imagine a future where it's 18 feet of chippy, but then there's not, we just shooting up every so often, is this an opportunity where you could do that thing you were saying where you apply?
Oh,
poison
yeah,
at the tip of
yeah,
each
the
one? That would be a
like,
good
say, yeah.
a swath to do it.
So, so I mean, I think I really feel confident that once you start compacting these chips, it'll really just force
Mhm.
the knotweed to shoot out somewhere else.
Sure,
Right, cause we're just gonna.
there's more resistance, yeah.
Just gonna compact it down over time. People, you know. A town's vehicle that needs to get in there, just people tromping through it over time and compacting down the chips like you see at the park.
Yeah.
Like it's just gonna keep it,
Mhm.
down
Mhm.
overall.
But you said you had, there's an herbicide that you. said
Yeah,
was
so
picky.
that was more for where it's coming into green spaces. So we're kind of going from the green space to the river's access.
Mhm.
So working on this knotweed mitigation phase would be focusing on more around where it's creeping into these larger green
Mhm.
spaces and seeing, okay, I cut it back in the autumn, I apply the glyphosate, it dissipates really quickly, it breaks down like within, a little bit of time, like maybe a day, even less of a day, and then it just evaporates into the fibrous tissue and then it kills the rhizome in the ground. And that's what you want. Then we can slowly reclaim the 20 or so feet. And then as we get to the other side of these patches of knotweed, then we're just back into like thicket, right? Around all these sycamores. And then we can start cleaning around those rings where it's just tall grass and whatever. And then, ideally it'd be nice to have these open, cleaner spaces. A good example would be when you walk into Sycamore Park and you go to your immediate left, you see the picnic table access. That's all kind of like
Right, this way.
tended over years of time where there's not a lot of brush and you can kind of just meander around all these trees that are on this clean space. It's not a green space, but it's just, it has a flow and it's open. So, I mean, that would be like, so here's a good example, like right here, you have a bunch of knot. Geez, I have a bunch of knotweed, like this, like these things disappear, these things disappear. All this stuff disappears and you get, all of a sudden you clean it all out and then you have this like, you have these spaces that are kind of like hidden or in their own little zones, but at the same time you can flow through them and see to the other side.
Yeah.
So it's not so much like a labyrinth.
Oh, labyrinth, yeah.
Isn't the best time to apply that when the growth is young? I would think in the spring. when
Yeah, so you can do it in the
effective.
spring and they said to do in the autumn. The tricky thing about the spring, the gentleman I've been talking to about it, who's kind of like pioneered this apparatus. And I'm looking to do it in a commercial volume. He says, the trick about the spring is timing around pollinators. So he was like, if you whack it back, it's gonna shoot right back up. Like we whacked all that stuff back in the fall, we're into June now, it's already exactly
Sure,
back where it was. So the trick is to go back down there and whack it again, so it'll come back up just a couple of feet and then you just, you know what I mean? So you can actually access it because then you either have to cut it back so that it's, not too low, so you can actually get to those tubers and just like, you know what I mean? And then apply to the top of them. Like if you cut the stalk and then you apply it, that's the best application. They've done it where you can smear on a tall, mature stalk, it's not as effective. So you kind of want to just like hedge it. And then you're able to access it with the sprayer and just kind of like dab over as many as you can. The more you do, the more effective it is.
Well, that's an awesome project and a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
doing that. I'm so glad
Um,
you're involving John Swepton too, because I really we can trust, like, he understands trees, like
Yeah.
this one's worth,
Oh, yeah.
this one's not
He
worth
was pretty
keeping. Like,
excited about
he is
it.
a good-
We
makes
were,
sense.
we were excited about it, like, the select board was pretty happy about it. They're like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, like.
Thing all around.
It's a pretty good thing all around. Me and John are excited about working with each other. We've never worked with each other before, but we know each other pretty well. And we're looking forward to just being able to kind of set a new frontier. And there's lots of things that we always could be doing, and I think this is one simple, straightforward work scope to
And
kind of.
important, I think the safety
Yeah,
piece.
the safety part's pretty critical. I
Mhm.
feel like as a parent with a wild 8-year-old girl that just likes to, I mean, she's pretty competent, you know what I mean? She's a good sense of space and a good compass, but for other children, like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom, and then you're like, yeah, okay, let me like walk with you, and then you're like, oh, we didn't go the right way. I really gotta go, like, it's just not, or like, where did little Jimmy go? where's Jimmy? Like, oh, he went down that path, he went ahead of you 10 feet, and you literally,
can't
within
see
10
far.
feet, like it bends the other way, so it's like, it's just not
Totally.
good to have a labyrinth near a river's edge.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just not good, so.
I remember having a newborn and having my
Mhm.
3-year-old running away from
Right,
me.
and then you're
doing
like-
Stuff, being like,
you're
what,
like-
you need to be able to see me.
And then you get out on the beach and he's not there,
Yeah.
you're like, oh.
Which
Hey, Nick.
direction, right?
Right.
Cause it can still
Hey,
be
Nick.
stalks. Yeah.
Right. So this will just, it'll be nice and wide, like 18-20 feet. So that the mower deck can get in there, cause the deck's like 11 or 12 feet when it comes down, right? Or I think that's what we said. We figured that out. It's like at least 14 feet for the tractor and the deck extended. So, and then it needs to be able to turn around and pass the other side, right? If and when it needs that kind of maintenance.
Sure.
But like I said, I think if we keep packing on the chips. Because it's not gonna be perfectly, it's not like once we mow everything down, it's gonna be like flat. We're gonna wanna like, feather it out and make it like actually able to traverse on foot, so.
Cool.
So, yeah, that's sycamore, the the crabapple tree, I was just saying.
I see those
pictures.
email, yeah.
I've been looking at it forever. Since I make my rounds every week and I'm like, I'm gonna get to this thing eventually. And today I went down there and got a majority of it cleaned up because it's a nice, it's a fun tree. There's
Yep.
2 balsams also that are dead right next to it, which we're gonna chip up and make those disappear. So that's the first thing we're gonna do, and then we're gonna go into the trail work. But these are the things we put on the proposal for maintenance for Sycamore Park. And so I figured I'd work ahead and I worked on the crabapple tree. And so that's what it looks like now.
Nice.
And then if you,
Yep. Sorry, this one.
and that's what it looked like before, but you couldn't even get near it. It was just this big bushy thing. So now I have a pile over there. And
Great job. That really is tremendous.
Thanks.
I also want to report that I went down with the little mini apple orchard when the blooming was happening, and so there were quite a few blossoms. It's still going to take some time, but that was pretty promising. One tree is prolific, and the others are sort of, I don't know, kind of spotty. So we'll know in the fall.
Right, yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to, I only ate a couple last year, but they were delicious.
Yeah, they
It's
were.
like it's like a little secret, you like shouldn't tell people about it. You know what I mean? Like, people are probably like, I bet those apples aren't really good anyways, but like, keep walking around and be like, yeah, keep thinking that.
I made a little apple crisp for the commission.
I know, I had some off the tree and I was like, whoa, these are delicious. So it's a little treat, little treasure.
Time, it's like a concerned citizen and picked them all and brought them to High Hall. And so I found these on town property and just brought them to the rec department,
Perfect.
which was awesome. Yeah, it's like, thank you.
Taxpayer property, like, bring it to the hall. That's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we're at with Sycamore Park.
That's great. Seth Hill.
Seth Hill,
So I was unfortunately unable to make it the last minute. My grandma, who was 100 years old, passed away.
wow.
And so I had to fly to Chicago for that. And so I couldn't go to the event. So thank you
Understandable.
so much for carrying the torch and for helping me in charge of that. I really appreciate your help. And how'd it go? And then we also have the management plan from Kristen.
It went great. David, was great about giving a tour and kind of gave us the overall walking tour of what Seth Hill is, where it comes from and how it was founded and what we used to use it for in terms of an aquifer for the town, and explained to us what the water bars were for. It's beautiful country up there. Yeah, it's I would consider that a soft recreation park area. I wouldn't call it a park, it's soft recreational space. The town owns. What are your thoughts?
My recollection is that the path off to the left, which Don Gale uses, is rather steep. If I recall, and you kind of traipsed up there and had a better look at it. We were kind of a little bit more at the intersection, and that's really a good deal of the crux of it in Dave's mind. If that could be eliminated, but that is the specific access to the broad
Yeah.
national park, Maple Grove, then it's that's a tough one.
Mhm.
So, but he did say there was some ways to kind of soften those pretty abrupt berms because you could have, I guess, he's got a serious military type vehicle, so that
Mhm.
can probably navigate, but it's relatively steep, and if you were going up and down in not very ideal conditions, icy and everything else, and with loaded, I don't know how many gallons. I think it could be pretty dicey. So that doesn't probably help matters. However, uh, it's just going to have to be probably that's in place. So it's really Don Gale's. Uh, it's on his plate to have to figure it out because I think the town isn't going to probably move on it much, and that the work is already done and it has to be in place or it's supposed to last 10 years.
Yep, and I think that that was really well addressed on page 8 of the management plan that Kristen wrote out.
So just to follow up, because I just wanted to be clear, so the town administrator asked me to help get more information around how we got to this situation between Don and David, the parcel itself, what it means for the town, what it looks like on survey map, what the jurisdiction regarding the logging road, regardless of what people have defined it as and plans, just concrete facts. So I've been working on that. As an agent for the town, and it's kind of in the purview for the park, so they tapped me to move forwards. I reached out to Don Gale and we walked that together to get a sense of his whole sugaring apparatus operation. And so, there's a lot to hash out here, in terms of the situation. I also discovered that looking at a survey map, that there's another parcel that intersects into the access road, which isn't mentioned at all in David's.
That's owned by the town.
Nope, it's private property. It's
Huh.
the Clark family owns it, the Clark Family Trust. And there's
Wow.
a section right at the first bend where there's survey stakes done by LaRose and it matches to the current survey, which was 2009. Where the Clark family's parcel, it's a little corner that comes through the entire logging road access around a bend and then goes back down to the other side of that road. So it's on either side of the road pretty significantly in terms of its survey. That's a concern because it's not addressed in David's plan, and I would be shocked if they knew anything about it. Regardless if they just pay taxes on it and it's a dormant parcel, section of parcel, it's still, so when you
Well,
do
that's
something like this, it's important to know. Also, we don't really know the exact jurisdiction and status of that logging road from the US Forest Service. So
Okay.
the Forest Service, not the main representative of that region for Addison County, was up there. And they did leave tags around where certain bars need to be moved and certain things need to be leveled out. Because it's not from them in compliance of what makes sense for their access from the Bristol parcel to the national forest.
Right.
So there's some clarification that needs to be done. Also, there seemed to be discrepancy about what Don Gale has stewarded in terms of taking care of that logging road. Also, the language around his lease
he not only has a lease with the town, which he's had for many years, and he's always been a good steward of it. He also has a lease with the National Forest parcel, because that's where the majority of his taps are. It's like 800 on the Bristol side, and about 4,600 on the other side, right? Also, Billy Orvis sugars through that axis as well, to get to
In the
his,
National Forest?
to get to his sugar bush
Oh,
as well, and he's not mentioned at all.
Hmm.
And are recognized at all within David's proposal.
Hmm.
So, there's a lot of clarification, and the town, like the administration, has no purview over how any of this came to be. Other than what Valerie signed off on under the language or narrative that she gave forward to the select board. And they kind of said, oh, well, it's grant money, we're not spending any money, right? They're like, oh, it sounds like good intentions, let's just go for it. But I don't think things were communicated in a way that's amicable. So now we're in a situation, and I walked that path, and it's basically gone from soft recreational access as what it's defined on what the US Forest Service put at the gate, which says you're allowed to recreate here. These are the actions you can do posted on the sign. Even though it's old and faded, it's implied, right? And it's known. So when Don speaks of people not being able to recreate anymore, that's true, because it's kind of segregated now. It's now it's been segregated to a hydrology system and makes it not accessible. Certainly if you're older.
Now, isn't what David said though, didn't he say that the piece of land had to be in compliance with various water regulations and flood mitigation? And what he did was just bring it up to code with the regulations, right? That's what he said when we were standing there.
I'm not here to, I'm
Because
not
it's
here.
in current use, right?
I'm not really, I can't really speak on that because, and I also, we can take David for his word, and I'm not saying he's not being forthright about it, but it remains to be seen what that really means, right? Especially you know, you have the Clark parcel there, right? Totally needs to be addressed. It's not addressed anywhere. That's kind of a red flag, right? And then we really don't have defined jurisdiction around that logging road. It's fine that David says that it's not acceptable anymore, but it needs to be defined and definitive. And we don't really have that information. The town doesn't really know how we got to this position. And I think it's important for the town to honor their agreement with Don, who has stewarded it. Now, if David says, well, I don't think the trail's really been taken care of, and then Don saying, well, I don't think that's accurate. You know, we have a situation. David doesn't have a lease for the land. David just put something on there with a grant. Don has been accessing that land and tending that land within the realms of his lease agreement. Like he has to keep, hold responsibility for that, and he has, or else we'd be having a different conversation. So what I've asked is to have Don follow up about the representative, I think his name's James or Jim Donahue, who's the actual Addison County US Forest Service representative for this area, for this county, to be definitive about if that trail is no longer recognized and is dormant, or it is in the jurisdiction of US Forest Service. And then any information that Don can provide over his course of many decades of stewardship, like what water bars he put in, how often did I mean, there's a whole culvert system that runs down there that doesn't provide any sort of service whatsoever function, because now there's water bars that are just diverting the water across the road.
Weren't the culverts blocked?
No, That's not,
thought
that's
that they
what
were-
Don said, they're not blocked, now they don't run because
Mhm.
now there's that. So there's this gray area between what David says Don did or didn't do in terms of stewarding the property, and then in that upper path, and then what David has done to say that, well, I'm gonna make this better, right? So it's just trying to figure out like.
Have the two of them been in a meeting with the town in any capacity?
Yeah,
Like,
there's
yeah.
whole select board
Yeah,
meetings,
it's like-
but in terms of direct communication, the only communication that was left back in February was. And I have it on email, was Don saying, hey. I wanna make this work, cause it needs to work for me. And it needs to work for you, I'm willing to. Pay my own money to make sure that the access. Is better and that we can. Mediate these water bars in a way that's just works better for us. Because I can tell you right now, it doesn't work for Don at all.
No, yeah.
It's, and the understanding I got from Don was. David and him. Exchange contacts. In a very casual way. And then. No communication was made, and then. All of a sudden, he goes up there to, you know. Work on some lines, which are which is a big part of the issue is he can't bring up line sections. And so now it's like, oh, I can only bring up a bundle of line on a four-wheeler and that takes forever and it's still treacherous. So it's like now it's 25% grade with water bars some of them are pretty quick in pattern and like some are like every 12 feet, some are like every 10 feet, some are, super pitched, some aren't. So it's a lot, and just in general, if you were to walk it, it's not fun to walk anymore, it's
Mhm.
great if you're motocross. Like, it's just, like, you know what I mean? Or like
Could I-
maybe skiing.
could I
when it
make some
snows high
observations?
enough. Yeah,
So I think the crux of this is a parcel owned by the town of Bristol.
yeah,
And is this a parcel that we are maintaining to help Don Gale sugar a maple sugar bush? Or is this a parcel with many potential uses? And um, my understanding was that David Brin, working on behalf of the town, installed these water bars to bring the logging roads into compliance with the acceptable management practices for logging. And so that was the reason for the work that was done. Um,
right, but you can't log those roads because though they're impassable now. They're
Correct,
not. in compliance
correct.
with law.
And no longer are we um, endeavoring to log that property. And so when you complete logging, as they did many decades ago, you're
Mhm.
supposed to then leave the access roads in a condition that doesn't accelerate erosion and runoff. And that's what David did, was to essentially close out those roads um, after logging had been completed.
Mhm.
And what we have is a situation where we have competing uses of this property, right? And that's why we wrote the management plan, in order to collect all the competing uses of this property and start to think about how we might balance those. And I think we have to ask ourselves, are we in the business of making this property super accessible for one individual to make a living and participate in
Well,
a
it's not, to be clear, it's not one individual.
or are we in the business of understanding all the functions and values of this property, from recreation to conservation, and balancing those uses and functions
Yeah.
alongside an individual's desire to sugar the maple sugar bush on the property?
I agree with the statement that we need to understand Seth Hill as a whole. I think you have multiple groups involved, whether you have the community that used it for recreating and horseback riding and doing all the things that they've been doing for decades. You also have Don, who's been sugaring there, which David said is a great use of the property, but now he can't do that. Because
He
this whole,
He can do it, but it is more challenging.
it's, I mean, that's to say it lightly, it's not that it's more challenging, it's not, it's dangerous now. And because there wasn't sufficient communication between David and Don is now in a situation where it's not just the lease he has with us, it's the lease that he holds with the National Forest. And now that
Understood.
egress is compromised.
Understood.
It's-
And
Right,
if that's the case, then doesn't the Forest Service have some responsibility to
I
make
think that's where we're
access of
getting
their
at.
property possible?
Yeah, well, I think there needs to be clarity from the Forest Service. The town needs to understand the purview of the property overall. We need to understand, we need to have a bit of a discussion between all the groups and defined information regarding it. So, and like I said, there's also a parcel that's not even recognized that's in this property.
I have a different perspective, and that is that there was good intention.
Sure.
With Valerie signing off, she thought, hey, this is good. David Brin's purview is to have, with climate change and more significant runoff issues. That was the main gist of what I got of why he was doing that. Don and David met early on, and then there was a gap there. And then I think the expectation that Don had, or understanding, we'll say, not expectation, was not nearly what ended up being the case. And whether it was, I don't want to say David was a little overzealous or not, the problem is that is all, it's past history. So that's going to stay there. It's going to be there, supposedly it's expected to last for 10 years. So the only way forward, and I do think it's an incredibly hard burden on Don, because Don was a leaseholder and his lease uh, parameters changed substantially when these water bars were put in. But it's incumbent upon Don, if he wants to continue, because he can bail out on the lease, and it's really unfortunate. I do feel for Don, but that he can put in some trees to soften those water bars, to do something that will allow the water bars to still function, but yet create less of a roller coaster and big dips, if you put some trees, because that was my understanding of the best approach to manage it, because you can't go backwards. So it's really going to be Don coming up with his best fix for the
Well,
situation.
I don't necessarily, not to interject too hard, but I don't think that that's exactly clear. I don't think you can necessarily say, and looking at the contracts, there is some language in there which could call for reversal. So it's not a set in stone situation, just to be clear about that. So what needs to be clear is the responsibility the town has with all parties involved, and to come to a compromise. Because we've really let two parties, the community, a third party we don't know about, and a second sugarer that we didn't know about, kind of in the dark, right? Because they didn't really have any sort of
Yes.
substantial.
Is there any future talks of getting all these people together?
So what
Joining the table?
what the town administrator asked me to do is to gather all critical information from the Forest Service, all the information we collected from David, any other comments he has or thoughts moving forward. Everything from Don, from all his time stewarding, his operation, all the information. More information from the Clarks, whether they're aware or not about the change to part of their parcel, right? And like I said before, like knowing what the purview of the Vermont what the agreement is between that parcel and the US Forest Service access, what that really means. You know, it'll be one thing if they say, well, it means this, or it means, oh, it's dormant and it's now just like public, it's the town of Bristol, or whatever. That's, all those are different, those are all different conversations.
And this was a conversation that I had asked to be part of and was denied by Valerie and David early on in the plan, and we were not included in the conversation, even though we asked to be. So this is not a problem that we created, but we would like to solve this in the future, which is why Kristen has made this management plan.
Right.
Right, and so if we have a management plan in place, she's written a 19-page draft for us to review today. I don't know if we have time to review that today. Kristen, could we maybe review this for our July meeting if people have more chance to read it? Would that be all right with you?
Sure. Yeah, I think that would be a
But I
good
know in the
thing.
past, we've sort of like shared a screen and gone through it together. Since we'll be all on Zoom for our July meeting, that could be really nice, where everyone could look at the document, you could scroll through together. Would that make sense?
Yeah,
And then a way forward in general, like maybe
Yeah,
we don't have a seat at
sure.
this table, but we have a seat at future tables about
Yeah,
South Hill.
sure.
And maybe we can make sure we can avoid future unpleasantness with the way we've worded this.
Chris and I read through your report, and it's great, and I think it's well balanced, and it just kind of just shows where we're at. Everything that I've gathered is just a fact-finding mission. It's just trying to like have some sort of agency kind of help develop a purview for the select board, so they have something they can really think on.
Right.
And figure out like
It would be-
where
yeah.
we all stand with everything, because it's really not clear for anybody.
I think another, to add to the things that should be added to the list is like, so the road did need to be in compliance with current use. What could that also look like?
Right.
It looks
Sure.
like the water bars at the moment, but like, what has to be in place for it to be in compliance with that too?
Right.
Just to like know
Sure.
where the parameters of that
Yeah,
are too.
I think it's just
Like,
knowing
if it's-
parameters.
Yeah.
Overall, I think that's,
Right.
and I think the only way we're gonna be able to get there is by having all the critical information from all the parties.
So maybe
and
that's something that David
definitive
Fred could
information,
answer.
like what,
Yeah.
yes, that's what this is, and that's what this means, and no, that's not what it means. Or, you know what I mean, so then we can figure it out
Yeah.
together, and I really want it to be an amicable situation, and it's important to know what the future of Seth Hill holds, cause it's a soft recreational area. It's not defined as a park. It's not in the parks, it's not in my jurisdiction, but, you
We
know,
didn't even know as a commission, we
Right.
didn't know it existed.
Right.
Randy found it in like the vault. He was like, what is this land? Like, what's
right,
happening?
so, you know.
I would,
Go,
Can I
stepping
make-
back. like-
Kristen's been trying to interject for a while now.
Sorry, yeah.
I would like to suggest that while we read the plan for homework before the July meeting, that we think broadly about this, like, is it still worthwhile for the town of Bristol to hold title to this piece of land? Or would we consider selling it to the Green Mountain National Forest, which might help to resolve some of these conflicts? Would we
Sure.
consider selling it to an individual? Would we consider putting a conservation easement on it with the participation of organizations like Trust for Public Lands or others?
Sure.
It has a lot of good conservation value in addition to its highest and best use presently, which appears to be as a sugar bush. So just something to think about in the back of our minds as you read through the draft management plan.
That sounds really great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I totally agree. I think it's just trying to figure out what it all means for all the uses that are involved and all the parties involved. And, you know, make sure everybody's aware and on the same page. And so that we can communicate in a way that's transparent and comes to an amicable, at the end of the day, my goal is to hopefully see an amicable resolution to this whole situation. And so that there's not a lot of, or any resentful feelings towards the property, and to have an idea of what it means moving forward.
So in the interest of time, I think we should move along. Since we wanted to end the meeting already, and there's a bunch to do still, but hopefully we can go quickly. The next thing I'd like to chat about quickly is those site visits, especially for our new folks, but other people haven't seen all the sites yet. One thing we talked about last time was Saunders River access and trying to do a tour sometime in the second half of June after the hay was out. And I think we must be past that point now, but it's before it gets high enough. So I think we should think about that coming up quickly. Kristen, do you agree with that timeline?
They, Ellen cut the hay last week, so now is a good timing to get in there.
Great.
I could potentially find time in my schedule next week.
Perfect. What time next week works for folks? It's like in the early evening. We've done that a few times. Or we do 6 o'clock on Thursday. No. Well, maybe.
I'm pretty flexible than what I talked about before in terms of the parks, but
Yeah, I can't do Wednesday, but
6 o'clock Thursday next week. What do you
That
say?
works for me.
Or 5.
Do you want to do
5
5?
might not work. I've been having to work up north the last 2 weeks and I'm not getting home till like 5.
I throw it out there because I know we're free the second Thursday of the month at 6 o'clock. How about the third? Anyone?
I can certainly do that.
Can we do that?
fine.
Okay, the trick is finding it. Kristen, what are our thoughts? Do you have a map that shows where to turn by that stick in the ground?
Is there parking or do we need to?
You kind of drive
you-
through the field a bit.
Yeah, you
It's
drive through the field and you just park
also-
in the field next to the kiosk. Are we talking about the 26th then of June?
I think that's the 19th.
The 19th.
Oh, the 19th.
What?
I did see it was supposed to rain, which doesn't matter for us, but like driving through the fields.
Maybe we could,
Does that
maybe
matter?
we could email, just to make sure. That night is free and that weather looks good. Does that sound okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll do an email and then,
I have a map.
I worry about trying to make a map. Do you have a map? I was gonna try
I
to make one. I don't know where to turn
No,
either of them.
I have a map and I have very clear instructions on how to get there
Beautiful.
that I'll forward to the email list.
Okay, so I'll write an email like early next week that says like this is the time and make sure we think it's good enough weather and stuff. And then we'll include Kristen's map and everything. Does that sound good?
Mhm.
Great. Okay, good. Just because that's a weird one, and I bet very few people on the commission have probably just Kristen. John, have you been there?
I have been there with Kristen
Okay.
leading the tour, maybe a year or two back.
Yeah, so not many. You have been there?
No, I
Yeah,
never
okay, so
did.
only the 3 old
I
timers
think
here.
Matt Witten was there as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that'll be great. And then other site visits. I know, we still want to get our new people out to Sycamore, as well. Or Memorial, does anyone have time or inclination? I know there was a few emails with Aiden about Fridays when you do your loops, if there was an interest.
Yeah,
I didn't know if you had ever touched base or close that loop together.
Yeah, I kind of just extended an invitation. That's the
Okay.
best day for me. And I'm be happy to show you all the work that'll get done next week. So at the other end of that week, if that works for people, I can make myself available. I'm more than happy to do it.
Next Friday?
Okay.
Sure.
That works for
20th.
me.
Okay.
No, you can't do that as I'm giving a talk at the library,
What time?
5 or 6.
Because you do it during like the afternoon usually, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do, I always do my parks check. I'm just saying I'm flexible to do it. I was just thinking ideally Friday's fun because I'm already kind of there
Mhm.
doing my thing, so. I mean, really anytime, I'd like it to be able to work for everybody, so just let me know, like. I can step away from the office if it's like in a funny time during the day,
Mhm.
like that's part of what I do for Parks Department. I wanna be able to show you the park.
Any thoughts on that? Scheduling something to go to Memorial and or Sycamore? Any thoughts?
Sounds good.
Okay, well, let's try, well, maybe anyone interested, you should email Aiden about the 20th then. Okay, great.
Or make an individual, if
Yeah.
you need to make an individual tour, totally happy to do that.
Yeah.
We don't have to be beholden to a group. So it's like if 3 of us can do it on this day and 3 of us, 2 of us, whatever,
And
one.
many people have already been to Sycamore and,
Right.
and Memorial, it's just our newest numbers, I think, we want to actually get out there.
Sure.
Okay, Timberlands multi-trail partnership, we were going to table that with no information unless someone has something they want to say before it gets tabled. Nothing. Roger said he would be on it and he apologized for not going to the meeting. He had a thing he had to with. Great, okay, that'll be tabled then. Wildlife corridor is tabled. Education accidentally got talked about, but is
yeah,
tabled.
I have in the works. I have a person. in
There's an open meeting laws. I believe I have to keep that table, so I'll talk about that next time. Education or organizational items, H, missing minutes. Would you be able to look online and see what minutes are missing and then ask us to email you those minutes? Because there was a period there we had no clerk, and I am sure there's stuff in my email and other people's emails. I need Nancy, Chris, I need you to make us give those to you so we can get them online, find them, tell us to email you which months, and then we can get them to the clerk, yeah?
Yeah, Sharon
And
needs.
they're on the website?
No, the ones that aren't on the
Right,
website.
on the website for the ones that.
Right, you cross-reference, yes.
Look for the ones that are
But
missing.
The minutes are on the website.
The ones we officially have are on the website, and the ones that are missing are in our
They need to
inboxes.
be on the record.
Exactly.
Is that still from the last year? Or
It
is
should just be the
recent?
last 4 months
Yeah, I
or
was gonna
something. It
say,
should be like,
the
yeah,
last
because
year, that was a struggle.
that was
in
the big
fall.
month, the big struggle, yeah. Webpage updates. Oh, I have to update Alex. It's gone. So I'll do that. Everything else was updated perfectly. I was gonna say it's perfectly updated for once, but immediately it's out of.
I didn't
out
even
of
know he
updated.
was gonna write that email. He was at work.
Really?
Someone got too overwhelmed with his meetings and just wrote it.
And you're like, look at this email I just got.
Oh,
Then he texted me and said, "Why didn't you reply?" I said, "I was too sad to reply." Next meetings, July 10th and August 14th. I believe we decided as long as we think we can have a quorum, we will meet exclusively on Zoom. Sounds like we have a lot of information. We have a lot to go over for July as is.
I'll be
Um,
in July, be August.
Can you Zoom on August though?
No,
Okay.
I'm without internet.
Well, now that you only count as one seat, that's actually easier for
Yeah,
quorum.
it is
Yeah,
easier,
you're not
isn't it?
taking 2 of us. Okay. So yeah, I think I can do Zoom for both of those. I think we should be able to, I think we're close to quorum at least, is my sense, is we'll be able to pull that off. And if not, we can at least do something, with whoever shows up. Better than full hiatus. And then, anyone comments on that? Great, and then, the new item I added to the agenda, membership, we do have a new opening. My thought is I would send out the same front porch forum post that again, see who replies. If no one replies, we can offer Aiden a spot if he wants it, and then otherwise, we'll see what happens from there. Thoughts on that? Is that fun with you?
Yeah. What was I gonna say? A majority of people have told me it might be best if I wasn't on.
Oh, yeah,
the
for
commission
conflict stuff.
Because it just,
Fine.
cause then I'd have to just recuse myself in a lot of different situations.
No,
But
no.
I'm always gonna hold it down at the end of this table. So I think moving forward, that makes the most sense.
That sounds perfect. I'll do that then.
So
So
by
I'll
all
send a front porch
means,
forum.
get some fresh blood in here.
Okay, I'll send a front porch forum post and we'll see who replies. So there was a third person that wanted the one that became 2 spots last time. But then they emailed me a month or 2 later and said, "Oh, did you fill those spots or not?" And I wasn't sure if they were still interested, so
Yeah,
I'll follow up
great.
there as well. In terms of events, our next event would be scheduled as our Saunders River Tour Access at 6 p.m. on Thursday, June 19th, unless we change it, which we will update with emails. And then otherwise, we plan for a July 10th meeting and an August 14th meeting for Zoom only for the summer to make that more accessible to people on vacation. All right, are we good? Cool. I'm so glad we had a few things melt away. We never would have had time. So this worked out great. Did anyone make a motion?
I won't.
Great.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning?
Bye.
Okay, the motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to
See
see
ya.
everybody.
Bye.
Likewise.
Bye.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you, Carol.